A hearty welcome to all of you to day 2 of our session on Java-based microservices. Before we proceed with the deliverables that we have planned for today, let's have a quick look at the agenda just to kind of figure out what are some of the modules we have already completed, and then we can get started with today's deliverables. Can you please look at the agenda and tell me how many modules have we completed till now? Correct. One module we have completed. In fact, we have just started with the second module, right? But the first module on introduction to microservices is what we have already completed. So today I will continue with the second module, which was on introduction to Spring Boot, right? So if you recollect, under the introduction to Spring Boot module, if you remember the objectives, these were the objectives that we were supposed to cover. Under that, we have just covered only the first part, what is Spring Boot, right? So we will continue our discussions from here. The next topic or the next objective to look at is to understand the Spring Boot features. And then we can get started with today's deliverables. So the plan for today is I will complete this second module today so that from tomorrow onwards, we can concentrate on the microservices based implementations. Yeah. But before I proceed with today's deliverables, we will attempt a small quiz. The quiz will indirectly help us to kind of review and revise whatever we have done in our previous day's session. Yep. So come, let's attempt this quiz, please. I've just jotted down some questions that might help us to kind of review. So come, let's look at some of these questions and try to answer them. Yeah. You can start with question number 1 on top. An application where the UI and all application functionalities and data access objects are all treated and managed and developed as one single unit is called as a dash application. Correct. It's a monolithic application, right? It's a monolithic application. Second question, please. Monolithic services or applications can be scaled independently based on the functionality, true or false? False, right? Scaling, yesterday we were discussing, scaling can happen on an application level. It cannot happen on individual functionality level, right? So if you've built a monolithic app where there's only one app where all the functionalities are implemented, scaling independently based on the functionality is not possible, isn't it? Question number 3, please. Loosely coupled web services with bounded contexts, which addresses a single concern, is called what? Correct. A microservice, right? Usually when we say bounded context, it has a particular scope, right? Every microservice addresses a single concern and it has a particular scope. It addresses a particular context and concern, right? Perfect. The answer for this is microservice. Yeah. Question number 4, please. An application made of many microservices that uses different persistence mechanisms, different languages are usually called as a dash application. Polyglot. Yeah. Polyglot application. Yeah. So poly means many, glot means many different varieties of techniques and technologies and languages. Yeah. So polyglot is the correct answer. Yeah. Perfect. Question number 5, please. Can you at least give me 3 advantages of microservices? Many of you are mixing and matching advantages and disadvantages. I'm asking about the question number 5. Yeah. Yes, they are loosely coupled. Yeah. They address a single concern, so iteration cycles are low, right? And it's highly easily replaceable, yeah, easily scalable. Even for the developer, working on it becomes easy because they need not know the entire code base. Yeah, code becomes much more manageable and much more readable. Yeah, you have the liberty to choose different technologies based on your requirement. Yeah, easily replaceable. Changes can be isolated. All those come under the advantages, isn't it? Yeah. Next, question number 6, please. Can you name at least 3 disadvantages of microservices, please? Correct. It is complex, especially if you already have an app and you have to re-architect that as microservices. It becomes very complex, right? One is correct. One is complex. And the second one is costly, because when I mean costly, because these microservices talk to each other, inter-service calls also have to happen over the network. So that's how the network becomes costly. And there is also a chance that you might get into a problem of an anti-pattern called nano services, isn't it? You remember? It's perfect. The last question, please. Can you name at least 2 Java-based microservice frameworks which can be used? Just don't say Spring, guys. Don't eat off the rest of the answer. Spring is wrong answer. Spring Boot. Yeah, Spring Boot. Yes, Spring Boot is the correct answer. Then anything else that you remember? Correct. Drop Wizard, Vertex, Jersey, and many more. Yeah. Of course, Spring Boot is something that you have to remember because that's what we are going to use, isn't it? Yeah. Great. Thanks for attempting the quiz. And I guess we are good to go ahead with today's deliverables. Yeah. So as per today's deliverables, please note we need to complete the module on introduction to Spring Boot. It's important that we get a good idea of Spring Boot because we are going to use Spring Boot to create our microservices. And nothing great, when you talk about a microservice, every microservice is nothing but a Spring Boot app. You'll realize as and when we proceed further, don't worry. But please remember, knowing Spring Boot is important. Yeah. Before I proceed today, I would want to give one lenience to some members of this training program. I can see that there are many members who are attending this microservice program who have already attended Spring Boot in the previous week. Yeah, or you might have already got good knowledge of Spring Boot. Yeah, or you might have already attended a training, so you are thorough with all Spring Boot related discussions. If that is the case, I can give you a lenience for today. You need not attend today because today it will only be on Spring Boot because these are the objectives that I will be covering today. So people who already have knowledge of Spring Boot, either you have attended the training program thoroughly or you already have working knowledge on all these. If you want to skip today's session because we'll anyway be going through only Spring Boot, you can do that. Yeah, that's the lenience I'm giving you only for today. Okay. So with that, I guess we'll continue with the rest of the discussions today, please. Yeah. So if you all recollect, these were the objectives that we were supposed to cover under Spring Boot introduction. What is Spring Boot? What are its features? When we start working with Spring Boot, we are supposed to work with something called as starter modules. Yeah. Plus, we are also expected to create and execute Spring Boot app. Plus, I will also introduce you to some additional services that you can use in Spring Boot. These are the various topics that I'll be covering today. Yeah. These, the first 2 slides we've already completed yesterday. I want you to, I'm just showing you these slides so that all of you kind of use it for quick review. I want you to just read these points, please, just as a review. Did we talk about these points about Spring Boot yesterday? How Spring Boot makes it easier for us to create a standalone production grade app, plus how Spring Boot is an opinionated framework, and based on the kind of application that you're creating, it's automatically able to guess what Spring configuration and what Spring related beans and other third-party related libraries might be required, and will automatically provide all of them on the class path so that me and you can get started with our rest of the work. Remember? Yep. Remember all these points, all of you, that we discussed yesterday? Yes, right? And if you recollect, this slide also we had completed. We know that Spring Boot is a framework from the team at Pivotal. And if you want to quickly and easily develop and start your new Spring-based application, Spring Boot is the recommended framework to do so. Yeah. And as a opinionated framework, when I say opinionated, Spring Boot is able to make a reasonable guess based on the kind of application that you're creating. And it will automatically provide the basic configuration, and it will automatically handle configuring your app in several other places, so that we need not get into those nitty-gritties, isn't it? Yeah. And the last point I want you to always remember is Spring Boot proposes a XML-free development experience. So you need not write even one line of XML configuration for Spring. Yeah, not even web.xml. Yeah, so just remember that once we start looking at programs, it will become much more easier for you to understand how it works. Team, are you all with me till now, please? Yes. So continuing with today's deliverables, we need to understand the various Spring Boot features. Yeah. By our discussions earlier, we know that Spring Boot provides us the facility to create a standalone Spring-based application, right? But how does it make my app a standalone app? That's because of the second point. When you use Spring Boot and you create your own web application, by default, Spring Boot provides a embedded app server. Yeah, either you can, by default, it will give you a embedded Tomcat as your app server. And in case you want to reconfigure it, and instead of Tomcat, you want to use Jetty or Undertow as your embedded app server, you could configure that as well. But if you go ahead with the default configuration, when you create a Spring Boot app, by default, it will provide you a embedded Tomcat server. So you need not be dependent on any external server. Once your app is ready, you need not separately deploy it on any other app server, because by default, you will have an embedded app server. Just create your app and just run it. Yeah, that's the whole idea. The third point is very important, because when we start working with Spring Boot, we will come across and use many starter modules. So what Spring Boot does is, Spring Boot provides us opinionated starter project object modules to simplify your entire Maven configuration. Yeah, I'm repeating one very important thing. Many people might have missed this instruction because you might have joined late. Please note, we are doing this second module, which is an introduction to Spring Boot, to help people who are new to Spring Boot, because this is a microservices training, and many a times we receive nominations from people who are not aware of Spring Boot. So it is important for me to give them a good introduction to Spring Boot, so that they can start creating microservices well from tomorrow onwards. Yeah. So if people already have Spring Boot knowledge, you have already attended a training, you already have good hands-on knowledge on Spring Boot, I'm giving you the leniency to drop off the training today, only today. Because anyway, today we are only going to cover Spring Boot. Yeah, I'm giving you that lenience, please. Whenever we are discussing, I don't want you to keep disturbing us in the chat window. Yeah, I know that many of you are already aware of Spring Boot. Yeah, but let me help the others also to come on par with us so that from tomorrow they are well versed with whatever is there in Spring Boot. Is that okay, all of you? Yeah. Anybody is getting bored because you are already aware of Spring Boot, take off today. Okay, tomorrow you can come and join us back. Yeah. Okay. Have a look, please. So continuing with this point, Spring Boot provides us opinionated starter project object modules to simplify the entire Maven configuration. Okay, now what is this? One thing to note is, please remember that Spring Boot depends on a build tool for managing its dependency and packaging requirements. I repeat, please note whenever you plan to use Spring Boot as your framework and you want to create your apps, Spring Boot depends on build tools to manage its dependencies and to help it with some packaging requirements. So Spring Boot recommends you to use either Maven as your build tool or you can use Gradle as your build tool. During our training, we will be using Maven as our build tool. So I'm sure many of us as Java developers and Spring developers, you might have already got a good understanding of Maven, right? So assume I'm using Maven as my build tool. Yeah. Which file should I use to specify all the dependency requirements is? Assuming that I'm using Maven as my build tool, which file will contain all dependency related details mentioned? Correct. pom.xml file, isn't it? Yeah. Now, because I'm anyway using Spring Boot, what it does is, Spring Boot provides us certain starter project object modules to simplify this entire configuration. So, what do you mean by a starter project object module? What Spring Boot does is, each important feature of Spring Boot or each important feature of typical Java development, it will provide you as a single module. Yeah. Now, what is a module? Module is nothing but, or a starter project object module, or a module in short, is nothing but it is a collection of related packages, related interfaces, classes, annotations, and other configuration that supports a particular feature, isn't it? Yeah. I repeat, whenever we talk about Spring Boot starter modules, what is a starter module? A starter module is nothing but it is a collection of related packages, interfaces, classes, annotations, configurations, etc., which supports a particular feature. Yeah. Now, for example, Spring Boot provides us various starter modules. One starter module that it provides is called as web. So, if your intention is to create a simple web application using Spring Boot, anyway, Spring Boot provides you the starter module called web. So just add the starter module web related dependency in your pom.xml file. That's all. Just add this starter module for web as the dependency in your pom.xml and you are ready to use all the web related facilities. Yeah. Similarly, assume you want to interact with a database. To interact with a database, maybe you want to use JDBC style of interaction. So JDBC also is available as a starter module. So if you want to use JDBC style, again add the JDBC starter module dependency in your pom.xml file. Yeah. Or instead of JDBC, you want to use regular JPA style of working. That also is available to you as a starter module. So add that dependency here, and that is how you can continue. Yeah. So it becomes so very easy for you to add the appropriate dependencies and get started with your apps quickly. Team, are you all with me, please? And fourth point, we've already discussed earlier also, Spring Boot being an opinionated framework, depending on the kind of application you create, it will automatically configure the basic Spring wherever possible. So you need not sit and do any such basic configuration. All the basic configuration will be handled by Spring Boot. Yeah. Apart from providing you these basic features, Spring Boot also provides you several production ready features also. Like, assume you have created your app and you have already deployed and the app is already running. Now you might want to collect some kind of metrics about your app, or you might want to conduct some kind of health checks about your app. All this is possible in Spring Boot. Yeah. And last but not the least, I'm sure we know it, because Spring Boot proposes a XML-free development experience, absolutely no need of using any XML-based configuration for Spring. Yep. Don't get confused here. Some people, after seeing this point, they ask me, Savita, just now you're saying in Spring Boot, absolutely no need of XML configuration, but here you're talking about pom.xml. Is pom.xml a requirement from Spring Boot, guys? Does Spring Boot expect you to use pom.xml? No, right? Pom.xml is a requirement from Maven. Because you're using Maven build tool, Maven build tool will expect you to provide all the dependencies using pom.xml file, isn't it? Yeah. So don't get confused between these two. So as we said earlier itself, Spring Boot depends on the build tools to manage its dependencies, etc. And you are most welcome to use either Maven or Gradle as your build tool. Yeah, whichever you are comfortable with. But during our training, we'll be using Maven as our build tool. Yeah, and we just now discussed in the previous slide to simplify this entire dependency graph and to help us to work with various Spring Boot's functionalities. Each Spring Boot functionality is modularized, and groups of these dependencies can be brought into your project by importing and using the appropriate starter modules. Yeah. So to make things easier, what Spring Boot does is Spring Boot also provides you a parent project object module. Look at this point. It also provides you a parent project object module. Whenever you guys create your own projects, in your pom.xml file, we can import, or we can extend, we can mark Spring Boot a parent project object module, and rest of our dependencies can manage or can be managed as per the parent module. So that also Spring Boot provides us. Yeah. Don't worry, when I show you the first Spring Boot app, you will get more clarity on it. Yeah. And as I've been talking about, here are some more points about Spring Boot starters. Spring Boot starters are nothing but these are convenient dependency descriptors that you can include in your application depending on what kind of feature you want. Every feature is represented as a starter module and you can include them in your app, right? For example, we just now spoke about it, right? Assume your plan is to create a Spring app and you want to use JPA for your database access. What Spring Boot provides is, it provides a starter module called Spring Boot Starter Data JPA. So just include this Spring Boot Starter Data JPA starter module in your pom.xml file, and that's it, you are ready to, right? So there are many starter modules provided by Spring Boot. There is a huge big list of such starter modules, and many of these starter modules we will be using during our training as well. Yeah. So here is a link. I'm going to provide you this PPT once the training is completed, so don't worry. But in case you want to find out a list of all the project object modules or the starter modules available, here is the link that you can access. Yeah, let me just quickly show that to you. So you can see here that a huge big list of modules are available. Yeah. You can scroll down and you can see there is a see, these are all starter modules. So there is a starter module for there's a starter module for Spring Boot parent. You can see here, see, Spring Boot starter parent, which can act as the parent for all our projects. Yeah. Similarly, see, there is a Spring Boot starter module available for JDBC. We will also be using few others like if you want to enable management features for your existing app so that you can collect some metrics and health statistics, we will be using one module called actuator. Yeah. Plus, we will also be, in case you want to use JPA or anything like that, okay, you have facilities for that. If you want, during our training, we will also be using one view resolver engine called TimeLeaf. Yeah. So you can see that all the, and if you want to create a simple web application, you have the Spring Boot Starter Web. So all these are the starter modules available from Spring Boot. So depending on what you want, you can kind of start using them and including them in your pom.xml file. Yeah. Team, are you all with me? So now that we have got a fair introduction to Spring Boot and we know how Spring Boot can make our lives easier, now we will start looking at how you can create a typical Spring Boot application. Yeah. So one recommended way and one easy way to start creating Spring Boot applications from scratch is by accessing the web interface called Spring Initializer. So how do you access the Spring Initializer, which is the web interface? You will access start.spring.io. So when you access start.spring.io, you will get a Spring Initializer web interface screen like this. You will make your selections here depending on, you'll fill in all the details like project details, language selections and other metadata. Here you can decide and select all your dependencies. Finally, once you do all these, once you click on this generate button, you will be able to download a depending on the build tool, a bundled up project as a zip file. Now, once you unzip it, you will get your appropriate project, and that is the project you will import it onto your IDE and you can start using it. Yeah. So this is the Spring Initializer screen. I will demonstrate the screen now, and once the project is ready, we can import it onto our IDE. So these are the basic prerequisite in terms of software that you need to have on your machines, please. Yeah. You need to have minimum JDK 1.8. Any latest versions is fine, but minimum version of JDK you should have is JDK 1.8. Because Spring Boot will expect you to use a build tool, you can use either Gradle or Maven. Gradle 2.3 or higher, or Maven 3.0 or higher. And of course, you need to have an IDE. You can use Spring Tool Suite as your IDE, or you can use IntelliJ IDEA, or you can even use Eclipse. Okay, the choice is yours. Yeah. The recommendation from Pivotal is to use Spring Tool Suite. But of course, it's after all a Maven project. You can use any IDE of your choice. Yeah. So during my training, I will be using Eclipse as the IDE. And I will be using Maven as my build tool. Plus, I will be using JDK 1.8. Yeah. This is the combination that I will be using. But you are most welcome to use any combination of your choice. Yeah. If you are comfortable with Gradle and IntelliJ IDEA combination, that also you can use. Yeah. And in the previous step, once you create your project, you will be able to download a bundled up project as a zip file, right? Once you unzip it, you will get a Maven project. That Maven project that you created in the previous step, you can import it into your IDE as a Maven project. And once that is imported, then you can make the changes as per your need, and then you can run it. Yeah. So shall we try our first simple Spring Boot application, please, all of you? So just to keep it simple, we will create a very simple Spring Boot app with only one dependency called web, because I want to create a very simple web application. Maybe it just returns a greeting message. Yeah. So we will do that. As we just now learned, what is the recommended and the most simplest way to create a Spring Boot application from scratch is to use Spring Initializer, right? So how do you go to Spring Initializer? Very easy. Start.spring.io. Yeah. So just go to start.spring.io. You see the Spring Initializer screen. Yeah. Here you will make some selections and finally you can download a bundled up project. Yeah. So here it's asking me, what type of project do you want to create? Maven project or Gradle project? I'll say I want to create a Maven project. Yeah. Which language do you want to use? Java, Kotlin or Groovy? I'll say Java. Here it's specifying which Spring Boot version do you want to use. It's also recommending me to use this version 2.6.6. Either you can use an old version or you can even use some newer versions, but it's always better to use the recommended version. So I will use the recommended version for now, which is 2.6.6. And here you can give your project metadata details, like what is the group? Group name will be part of the package name. So you can just change it to com.wipro if you want. What is the artifact ID? Assume this is my first Spring Boot demo, right? So let me just call it as Spring Boot first. Okay, I'll just call it as Spring Boot first, or I'll just call it as first demo project, something like this I'll call. Yeah. Once I call the first demo project, just a minute. I'll just call it as first demo project. And this is the name of my project. A short description is already there. And the package name, it has taken the group name plus the artifact name. It has taken as the package name. Now, if you want to restrict the package name only till com.wipro, you can do that. Yeah. Packaging, just take the default as jar. And here in the Java version, the recommended version is showing as 11. But in my case, on my machine, I'm using Java 8. So I will just select Java 8 here. But of course, in your setup, either you can use 11, yeah, or you can use 17, or you can use 18. Now I'm going to use version 8. So I've just set this. And here is a very important thing. Here is where you can add your dependencies. Yeah. So click on add dependency. Now in my case, because we are creating a very simple web application, only dependency you will require is web. So just type web. So you can see that you get this Spring Web dependency. If you just look at the description, you can see that this Spring Web dependency helps you to build web, including RESTful application using Spring MVC. It internally uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container, right? So this is more than enough for. So you can just add the web dependency. Again, depending on your need, you can add additional dependencies. Like in case you are using JDBC, again, you can say add dependency. You can enter JDBC. So you'll get the dependency for JDBC API and you can add this. Now, if you don't want JDBC API, you can even click on this minus so that it gets removed. Yeah. So that's how you can add. So nothing great. Once you are in start.spring.io in the Spring Initializer, I've selected the project as Maven project, language as Java, Spring Boot version, whatever was recommended. I gave my project metadata details. Packaging, I'm selecting the default as jar. Java version, I'm selecting 8 because I'm working with 1.8 version of Java. And in dependency, I've added only one dependency for now called web. Yeah. And once this is done, just click on this generate button. So it will download this bundled project, this Maven project. It will just download it for me. I just wait for it to download. You can see that the download has started. I'll just wait for it to complete. And then we will move it onto my workspace. And from there, we will import it onto our IDE. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm using, as I told you, I'm using Eclipse as my IDE. Even for microservices also, I will be using Eclipse as the IDE. You are most welcome to use any IDE of your choice. Yeah. If you want to use STS as your IDE, that also you can use. Yeah. Or IntelliJ IDEA, it's left to you. Yeah. So I've just kept my IDE ready. And now once my project is ready, I can import it here. Yep. Meanwhile, once I import, we can analyze the pom.xml just to see what and all content is part of the pom.xml. And then depending on our business requirements, we can create our apps. Okay. So I'm just waiting for it to complete the download. Finally, you can see that my project is ready. So this is a zip file. So I'll just get this zip file onto my workspace. I'm keeping all my Spring Boot apps in one workspace. So I'll just move all of them into that workspace. Or it's okay. Anyway, I'm just demonstrating it, right? I can just keep it in the download section itself, not a matter. So now what I can do is I can just right click on it and I will unzip it. Okay. So it's a zip file, right? So let me unzip it. And once I unzip it, you can see that this is my first demo project. And look at the structure of my demo project. By looking at the structure of the demo project and the pom.xml file, etc., are you able to make out that this is a typical Maven project? It's a Maven structure. Yes, right. Now what we'll do is we will just import it into my IDE. So I'll just copy this path wherever my project is. Now I'll come back to my IDE. I'm using Eclipse as you can see. And in Eclipse, just go to File, Import. And in the Import menu, just select the section called Maven. Under Maven, you will have an option called Import Existing Maven Project. So you are importing existing Maven project. Yeah. So just click on Next. And here you can put the root directory of your project, which just now I created. It's able to identify that it's a Maven project and it's able to identify the pom.xml. And here you can just click on Finish. Now, if everything is fine, the project should get imported and we should be able to use it. So you can see that it is importing the project. It's also downloading all the dependencies, all that. And once it is ready, we can start using it. Yeah. So my project is this, right? First demo project, right? So if you just expand, you'll be able to see the entire structure here, isn't it? Yeah. Team, are you all with me? Yes. So now that we have imported the project, we will now analyze the pom.xml file just to understand the dependencies and stuff like that. And then we can move on with our regular project. Yeah. So once the project is imported into our IDE as our Maven project, now we will review the pom.xml file to look at the various dependencies. And within that pom.xml file towards the end, in the build section, you will also have something called as a Spring Boot Maven plugin. And what does this Spring Boot Maven plugin do? What are some of the convenient features does it provide? All that we will look at, and we'll come back to this slide if required. Yeah. So I want you to go back to this. This is my project, right? First demo project. Just go to pom.xml file and we will analyze the details here. Initially, I want you to, this is a typical Maven project. So typical pom.xml file, root element is project and it ends with project. And here you can see some details. Can you all look at from line number 5 to line number 10, all of you? From line number 5 to line number 10. And tell me which, are you able to make out that this is the parent, Spring Boot parent project object module entry? Yeah, see? Remember, we said Spring Boot exposes a parent project object module or a parent starter module so that the rest of the dependencies can be as per this parent, right? So this is the parent entry. You can see that group ID is org spring framework.boot. Artifact ID is Spring Boot starter parent. And which version of Spring Boot am I using in my project? Can you look at this and tell me? Correct. 2.6.6, isn't it? Yeah. Next. Here are the general details of my project. What is the group ID? What is the artifact ID? The version, name, description, all that, right? Next. Can you look at line number 17 and tell me, in my case, which version of Java am I using? Correct. I'm using 1.8. So this is the Java version that I'm using. Yeah. Then let me scroll down. In the Spring Initializer, you remember what is the only dependency that I've selected here? Correct. I selected the web dependency. So you can see here that the dependency entry for web is available. See, group ID is org spring framework.boot and artifact ID is Spring Boot Starter Web. So this is the dependency that has got added. Yeah. So whenever you want to create a web application, all the web application related things will be provided to you just by adding this dependency. Yeah. Then, though I did not explicitly add the test dependency, you can see that by default, it has added a starter module called Spring Boot Starter Test, and this dependency will be provided during testing phase. So in case you want to create your own test cases by using JUnit, you want to write your own unit test cases or write integration test cases later, that dependency is automatically added. It's okay. Let that be there, not a problem. And finally, you can see that under the build section, there is a build plugin that has got added called Spring Boot Maven plugin. What is the Spring Boot Maven plugin do? Why is this necessary? What convenient features does it provide us? Here is a write-up on that. Yeah. So the Spring Boot Maven plugin provides many convenient features. One is, it is capable of identifying your app, going into your app, identifying your runnable class. A runnable class is a class which contains your public static void main. So it will identify, it will search your app, it will search for that class which has the public static void main, and it will flag that class as a runnable class. Plus, it also provides a built-in dependency resolver so that the dependency versions are downloaded according to the parent version. Yeah, so the Spring Boot Maven plugin manages the dependency resolving. It will automatically pick up that version which is matching to the parent version. Yeah, plus Spring Boot Maven plugin finally, whenever you package your app either into a single Uber jar file or a single Uber var file, it is capable of collecting all the jars available in your class path, and using all of them, it is capable of creating one single runnable Uber jar file, which is very easy for you to deploy it and run it according to your need. So all these convenient features are provided by the Spring Boot Maven plugin. Team, are you all with me, please? Yes. Okay. So that's it. That's what we have discussed till now. And once this is ready, okay, we have just analyzed the form.xml. Now, based on our requirement, we can create our controller class. We can put your functionalities, all that we can do. Okay. So just to keep it simple, yes. Just to keep it simple, what we'll do is we'll create a very simple controller class, and which will just send me a greeting message. Yeah. So this is my controller class. I want all of you to kind of quickly analyze the code first. And there's a small explanation of the code here. Plus this controller class, you'll have to keep it under src main Java folder. Okay, so you will have to create this Java source file, which is a controller. Just go through the code, then we'll have a discussion. Also read through this as well. You'll get a fair idea about what is this REST controller, what is this request mapping and all that. Yeah. Go through it. Anyway, I will explain. So I'm sure you can make out it's a very simple controller class that I've created. I've called it as hello controller. And you can see that this class has been annotated with @REST controller. What is the meaning of annotating this class with @REST controller? Meaning this class is now ready to handle the requests that are coming in, or the web requests that are coming in. So any web request coming in, this class is ready to handle it. That's the meaning of saying REST controller. But within REST controller, you can see that I have a method here called index. Name can be anything. But this method, what is it doing? It is just returning some greeting message, which is a string message. Now, right in front of this, I'm using @request mapping, and I've mapped it to a forward slash. What is the meaning? Whenever a request comes either from the browser or from any other tool, whenever a request comes on the main root URL, this method will be called. And what is this method doing? This method is returning a string. It is returning some data, right? But why am I saying that it is returning some data? It could even be a view, right? It can be even a view. Maybe it is returning a view, but why am I saying it is returning data? It's because this class has been annotated with @REST controller. Please note @REST controller is a combination of two annotations, @controller plus response body. I repeat, @REST controller annotation that I've used here is actually a combination of two annotations, @controller plus response body. And a combination of these two annotations will result in web requests returning regular data rather than a view. Isn't it, guys? Are you all with me? Yeah. So it will not return any view, but it is just returning your regular data. So in my case, it is just a string. That is what it gets written. Team, are you all with me? So this controller class you can create. In fact, because you have used the Spring initializer, if you are using Spring initializer and you are creating your app, automatically it would have even put all the appropriate, it would have automatically created a main application class. Yeah, just a minute. I'll just knock off things that are not required. I want you to get confused. There it is. Yeah. So I want you to look at this main application class. So automatically, because you are using Spring initializer to create it, this application class will automatically be available on in your project. Yeah. So I want you to carefully look at it. Look at your main application class. Then we can have a discussion. Yeah. Go through it, please. Are you able to make out that this looks like a regular core Java program or a console based application where we have a public static void main, isn't it? Yeah, it looks like that. Yeah, almost the same. So this is my main class, which has a public static void main. But inside this public static void main, you can see here, I am using a class called Spring Application. You can see the import here. Spring Application is available from Spring Boot. Using the Spring Application.run method, I am launching or bootstrapping this particular app. So what is this main application class name? Application, right? So that is what I'm starting. So the Spring Application.run method can be used to launch or bootstrap this app. That is what I need to do in public static void main. Plus, you can see that this main application class has also been annotated with a very important Spring Boot convenient annotation called @Spring Boot application. Now, these two things are very important. Let me highlight it. One is your main application class has been annotated with @Spring Boot application. Plus inside public static void main, by calling the Spring application.run method, you are launching or bootstrapping your app. These are the two important things. Yeah. Now, what is this @Spring Boot application convenient annotation provides us? Usually, whenever we create a typical Spring based app, there are several annotations that we might use, right? For example, we might use one annotation called @configuration. This annotation is basically used to tag those classes which can act as a source of bean definitions so that your application context container can pick them. Yeah. You might want to use one annotation called @enable auto configuration, where you are instructing Spring Boot, telling Spring Boot, start adding all the beans based on the dependencies and based on the class path settings and other bean definitions. Plus, if you want typical web MVC related functionalities to be enabled, we use another annotation called @enable web MVC. Yeah. Plus, in case you are having your components or your controllers or your services, etc., in some other packages, you can also use component scan so that it can scan and find out all these component services, etc. All these annotation put together is one convenient annotation called @Spring Boot application. Guys, are you all with me? Yeah. The moment you use @Spring Boot application, under that current package or any sub package, I repeat, when you use @Spring Boot application, current any other components or anything under the current package or any other sub packages under the current package, Spring Boot will be able to identify all of them. Yeah. And so that is what we have used, that convenient annotation. Plus, of course, in my Spring public static void main, using Spring application.run, we are launching our app, right? We are bootstrapping our app. That's all we have done. Yeah. So keep your controller ready. Your application class is automatically created if you are using Spring Initializer. And that's it. We are almost ready to run. But before we do that, guys, tell me, typically in a Spring Boot app, by default, when you create a Spring Boot app, which embedded app server do you get? I am asking you for an app server and you guys are telling me some port number. Listen to my question correctly. Don't be in a hurry to give me some wrong answers. Yeah. I am asking you which is the default app server do you get? Correct. Embedded Tomcat, right? And embedded Tomcat by default runs on which port number? Correct, 8080. But in case I want to reconfigure it and I want to change the port number, maybe on my machine I don't have 80 port free. I'm running something else on port 8080. So obviously, when your app runs, it will fail because it is expecting to run on 8080. So what I can do is, under my app, if you want to change the server's default port, you can go to your SRC main resources. There you have application.properties, or you can also use another alternative called application.yml. Yeah. And in that you can change your preferred port. So there's a property available called server.port, and using this I can change it. Guys, are you all with me? Right. So we'll do this right now. And then finally, once your app is ready, you can run it. Okay. So how do you run it once this is ready? If you are wanting to use the Maven command line, you can use the Maven package command and package your app so that you will get a runnable jar file. And once the jar file is ready under your target folder, you can use the Java command line and -jar option and you can execute it. Or anyway, you are using your IDE. If you are using your STS IDE, you will have an option. When you right click on your app, you will have an option called Run as Spring Boot app. You can use that. Or if you are using Eclipse, after all, it's a regular Java app. Right click on your main class, wherever your public static void main is, and then you can run your app. Yeah. And finally, once your app is running, access your main URL, and depending on your application, appropriate output should come up. Team, are you all with me, please? So what we'll do is we will do that activity right now. So anyway, I've already imported my project, right? So it's there in my ID. So you can see that this ID, the project was imported. Let me expand src main Java. You can see that this is the package that was automatically created. And under this package, this is my runnable class. My main application class is already created. Yeah. So let me show this to you. Look at this, please. Can you see that because I've used the Spring initializer to create my app, automatically the main application class is ready? Can you look at this and tell me, are you fine with this? Yes, right? So my main application class is ready. Now let us create our controller class. Okay, so again in this package, I'll right click new class and I will create a controller. So I'll just call it as hello controller. And hello controller, I will map it as REST controller. I can import the corresponding imports. Import REST controller from ORG Spring Framework web bind annotation. And here I will have my method, okay, which is returning a string, okay. So say hello, and this is the method, and right in front of the method, I will annotate it with request mapping, and I will map it to the root URL. So any request coming to the main root URL, this method will get called. Let me also add the import for this request mapping as well. This is a regular web bind annotation, and here I can return my date. Okay, I'll say welcome to the training. That's it. Yeah. So my controller is ready. Are you all with me, guys? Okay. So that's it. My controller is ready. My application is ready. Now, if I don't change any other details and I try to run this app. So if you're using Eclipse, when you right click on this app under run as, you will not have one option called run as Spring Boot app. That option is available only when you are using STS as your IDE. But don't worry if you're using Eclipse like me. Actually, on my machine, STS IDE becomes very, very slow. That is why I don't use it. At present, luckily, Eclipse is working fine. So if you're using Eclipse like me, you can just go to your main runnable class. This is your main runnable class, right? Just right click on your main runnable class, run it as a Java app. It's after all a Java app, right? Which has a public static void main. Just run it as a Java app. So let's watch the console. Let's see what happens. Because I've not changed the server port number, etc. The default port on which it will try to run is port 8080, isn't it? Yeah. So let us see what happens on my machine. So you can see here, it is trying to initialize Tomcat on port 8080. But when it is trying to start the app, you can see that the application failed to start. In my case, on my machine, web server failed to start because on port 8080, it is already in use. I'm running some other app on port 8080. Yep. So is there any way where I can change the port number for this app, guys? For this app? Yes, right? So you go to src main resources folder. Under the main src main resources folder, you will have one application.properties file. In the application.properties file, just say server.port and you change the port. So in my case, I've just changed the port as 8090. That's it. Yeah. So once this is ready, we can run the app again. Let's try running this app again. Let's watch the console now. Are you seeing that now it is trying to start on port 8090? Yeah. And you can see that it has already started, isn't it? Yeah. So it's already started. Now let us access it. 8090, right? Root or directly, that's okay. This is the output that you got. Was this the expected output, guys? According to my controller, whenever we receive a request on the main root URL, it will call the method called say hello, and according to that, this message is coming up. Was this the expected output, all of you? Isn't? Yeah. So this is how you can create your first simple Spring Boot app. Are you all confident on this? Yeah. Especially people who are very new to Spring Boot. Yeah. Are you all confident? Isn't? Yeah. Now, see, till now we have created very simple app. Yeah. There are some additional services and additional modules that you can use. Yeah. I will give you an introduction to some additional modules and which are very useful, and maybe it will be useful even when we do microservices also. So I will restrict that discussion only to some important modules and I will introduce you to that. Yeah. So there are 3 modules that I will have to discuss. And once we discuss those 3 modules, we can also enable these modules onto your app as well. Team, are you all with me? Now that we have completed our first discussion on how to create a first simple Spring Boot app, this is the logical time when we can take a break. So shall we take a break and come back? And once we come back, I will introduce you to the additional services that you can use in your Spring Boot. Great. So we will take a break now and we will come back and resume, please. Before the break, we have completed looking at an example of a very simple Spring Boot app where we have created a simple web application which is just returning a greeting message, right? Now, the last part of our discussion is where we will be discussing about how you can add additional services and modules onto your app based on your requirement. Under that requirement or under that discussion, I'm introducing you to one additional module that you can use in your Spring Boot app, which becomes quite useful, is this module called Actuator module. If you recollect in one of our previous slides when we were discussing, we said Spring Boot also provides you additional management support. Once your app is up and running, if your intention is to collect some kind of health statistics about your app or collect some metrics about your app, probably get a list of beans that are there in your app, and many other management endpoints are also supported. And that is supported by using this module called Actuator. So assume you are building a web app for your client and you probably need to add some management services. Spring Boot provides several services out of the box with its Actuator module. So once you add this Actuator module, it enables some management endpoints. It exposes one main endpoint called Actuator, and under Actuator, it exposes certain endpoints like health, audit, beans, many more. And using that, you can gain a lot of insights about your app. So if you want to use Actuator, how do you use it? One is, if you were creating the app from scratch and during that time itself you are aware that you would want to use Actuator, select the Actuator as the dependency. And we all know that once you select and once you download your app, automatically the dependency will be part of the pom.xml. But assume the app is already ready and now you want to enable Actuator. Nothing great. You can just add this Actuator dependency in your pom.xml file. Yeah. So add this dependency, save and restart your app. And once your app starts, apart from your own endpoints, you will see that additional endpoints, Actuator endpoints also will get exposed. Yeah. So let us try this. So as I told you, if you were using, initially, let me come back and stop this app. So you can see this red button here, right? So you can stop this app. And meanwhile, let me show you, if you were creating this app from scratch, you will usually go to start.spring.io, right? Here you would have added the dependency for web, right? Similarly, if you want to add actuator, just click on add dependency, and here you can choose actuator. See, what is Spring Boot actuator? It's a module that helps in operations. So it supports built-in or custom endpoints that let you monitor and manage your application. So various details about that application can be monitored and managed using this actuator module. So just add this module. Once you add Spring Boot actuator, this dependency gets added in the pom.xml. So this, if you are creating the app from scratch, but if you have already created your app, for example, assume I want to enable actuator to this app. So what I'll do is I'll just directly go to pom.xml file, stop your app first, go to your pom.xml file. In your pom.xml file, wherever is the dependencies, you add the dependency for actuator also. Okay, sorry, let me add this. Just copy it and then I will add it. Okay. Are you all comfortable from line number 26 to line number 28, 29, please? Yeah. And you can see that now that I have made some changes, you can see that automatically it will start downloading everything and building the app again. So you can see that this is what I've added. Yeah. This is once I've added this is the only change I've done. I've just added the dependency for actuator. Now let me try to run my app. Yeah. Let me try to run the app. I want you to look at the console. Are you able to see in the console messages? Are you able to see any important message on actuator? Yes, right? So you can see here, it is exposing one endpoint beneath the base path. So one base path called /actuator gets added to your app. Plus under actuator, one endpoint gets exposed. Okay. So let us watch or let us see what is that endpoint. So let us access this app again. And let us access actuator. So you can see that actuator endpoint is enabled, and under actuator endpoint, only a health endpoint is available. Look at that. Only apart from actuator, which is the base path, another endpoint that is enabled is the health endpoint. Yeah? The same health endpoint can also be used to check additional paths if required. Yeah? So you can see that base path called actuator is enabled, plus health is the only endpoint which is by default exposed. Yeah? So if you want to check health also, right after actuator, just type health and you will be able to see the health of your app. Can you look at this and tell me what is the health of my app now? What is the status of my app? Correct. It is up, right? So this is the only endpoint that has got exposed. But I was telling you that there are many other endpoints, right? There is an endpoint called beans, which will show all the beans that are available. Yeah. See, but that beans endpoint is not working. It is giving me a 404 not found error. Yeah. Apart from beans, there's also something called metrics. I can see a lot of metrics about your app. Yeah. Plus, I also can check the environment variable. Yeah, and there are many more. For example, there's also something called info that can be used to see the info about your app. None of them are working. Yeah, because by default, when you just enable actuator, by default, only one endpoint gets exposed under actuator, which is the only endpoint that gets exposed under actuator, guys, by default. Health, right? But if you want to enable others, how do you do that? So for now, I'm just stopping the app again. Let me go back to the application.properties, because Whenever you want to configure anything about your app, you want to change the default configurations, you'll have to do it in your configurational file, right? Which in my case is application.properties. Now, I want you to look at this. I'm just going to type one property, but it is guessable. Look at this property and tell me what am I trying to do. Okay. Look at this property on line number 3, please. Any guesses? What am I trying to do here? Correct. I'm exposing all the endpoints. Okay. Management.endpoints.web.exposure.include star. Here, this is star is an asterisk. Star, it's a wildcard character meaning all, right? So in this case, I am exposing all the management endpoints. Okay. So now let me restart my app. I want you to closely watch the console again. And let's see the difference now. Can you look at the difference? Can you look at the console message and tell me now how many endpoints are exposed, please? Correct. You can see here it is exposed 13 endpoints under slash actuator. Yeah. So now you go back here and kind of access this actuator. You will get to see all those 13 endpoints. Yeah. There are many of them. For example, see, actuator is the base path anyway. Then you also have beans. You have caches, health was anyway there. You also have info. You also have conditions. You can check the config properties. You can check the environment variable. You can check the logger related details, heap dump, thread dump. You can collect metrics. You can check the schedule tasks, any other mappings. Lot of these endpoints are exposed. Yeah. So whenever you get time, you just go through these endpoints. But a few of them, let me show that to you. Yeah. So for example, if I enable actuator. Health was anyway working earlier also. Now also it would work. Now apart from health, I can also use beans. Beans will show me a list of all the beans that are created and managed by Spring Boot. We know that Spring Boot as a opinionated framework. It can manage automatically. It will provide all the beans automatically and manage them, right? So these are the list of beans that it manages. Yeah. Of course, you can see that the output is in JSON format, but the output does not look very nice because it is not coming in a formatted way. In fact, you can add one browser extension called JSON formatter. And if you add that JSON formatter extension, you will be able to see this in a much more formatted manner. So for example, you can just Google for JSON formatter for Chrome. Okay, for Chrome. So you can just JSON formatter for Chrome and you'll get this JSON formatter and you can add this. Okay, you can add this extension to Chrome. Yeah, but let's see what happens because I'm using a Wipro asset. Yeah, this is Wipro official laptop. So can you see here JSON formatter extension you can add, but it is blocked by admin. You cannot add it into Chrome. Yeah, it's blocked. But the same thing I've added it into Edge browser. So you can see that in Microsoft Edge browser, I was able to add this JSON formatter for Edge. And now if I use Edge browser and I try to access this, at least the output will come in the formatted manner. Okay. It's not necessary, but like in case you want to see it and read it easily, formatter helps. Yeah. Because I have used JSON formatter extension, are you able to see that the same output, but it will display in a formatted way? Yeah. So this will show you the list of all the beans that are available. Yeah. Similarly, you can also use something like metrics. Metrics will first give you the names of all the metrics that you can check. These are all the names of the metrics. Now, if you want to find out a specific metric value, for example, you want to find out whatever is the JVM max memory. There is one metric available called JVM max memory. So you can copy this metrics and pass it as a path parameter here. So right after metrics, whichever parameter value you want to see, details you want to see, pass that as the path parameter. Now you should be able to see that detail about that particular metric. So this is jvm.memory.max. The description is it's the maximum amount of memory in bytes that can be used for memory management by JVM. And these are the measurements and values that are there. So all these details you'll be able to see. Plus, you can also check many other things are there. Mappings will give you the list of all the endpoints that are there. So what and all are the endpoints that are there? Yeah. And what is the meaning of each one of them? All those details are there. Plus, you also have something called ENV. ENV gives you details about the environment variables that are there on your machine. Likewise, there are many others you can check. Okay, there's also one more thing called info. Right under actuator/info, it will provide you the details or the information about your app. But can you look at this output and tell me it's not giving me an error? That's correct. But can you look at this and tell me what is the output that I get? I am accessing actuator/info, but what is the output that I'm getting? Empty, isn't it? Yeah, it's not giving me anything. It's just giving me empty. Yeah. So what I can do is, if you want to populate, if you want some kind of data to be displayed under actuator/info, there are certain settings that you have to enable. So let me just stop this app for now. Let me go back to my configurational file. And here, any property, for example, assume you want to display some properties like application name. Okay. First demo project. Yeah. Application author, I want to give my name. Yeah. Application version, I want to give 1.0. And any other, for example, system.type, I want to take it as Windows. System.version, okay, I want to take it as 10, whatever. If you want all this information, all this property information to be displayed under /info, what you can do is you can precede this or prefix each of these properties with info dot. Yeah, info dot like this. Yeah. So for example, whichever property you want it to be displayed under info, you can add a prefix called info. Are you all with me? Yeah. See, all these are regular properties, but because I want these properties to be displayed under info, I prefix it with info dot like this. Yeah. And once I do that, I should also use one more property. This property is called management.info.env.enabled and you set it to true. Yeah. So yes, one is you have to set all these values. Plus, if you want these values to be displayed, you need to use this property called management.info.env.enabled and you have to set it to true. Only then these things will be displayed. So that's it. Now, once I have enabled it, let me go back to my app. and try to run it. Let's watch the console. Now it's up. Let me try to access this info now. There it is. Are you able to see? I'm able to display some information about the app. App name, app author, app version, then system type and system version. So it's nicely formatted because I've added JSON format. So this is how you can use the actuator endpoint, guys. Yeah. So many useful things about your app you can monitor and you can get information when you enable actuate. Team, are you all with me? And actuator, all these will also be used when we come to microservices. So I want all of you to remember this, please. So guys, this was one additional endpoint that I wanted to discuss called actuate. Okay. Then the next additional endpoint, or sorry, the next additional module or service that I wanted to talk about was this view templating engine called TimeLeaf. Yeah. Guys, tell me one thing. Me and you as a Java developer, whenever we have developed Java based web applications, etc. Typically, what is the view technology we have used? What kind of views we have usually created whenever we have worked with Java based web applications? Correct. Either we will use JSP or in basic cases, we tend to use HTML, isn't it? Yeah. But typically we use JSP. But you know what? JSP based views are highly not recommended when you work with Spring Boot. I repeat, as per Pivotal Software, who are the developers of Spring Boot, using JSP based views with Spring Boot is highly not recommended because there are a lot of known issues when JSP works with embedded app servers. So, and it's not supported on many embedded app servers. Plus, if your packaging is jar, it might work. But when your packaging, when your packaging is var, it might still work. But when your packaging is executable jar, then many a time JSP with embedded app server will not work. So with all these drawbacks, the recommendation by Spring Boot is try to avoid using JSP. So if JSP should not be used, what are other alternatives available? One very good alternative available is TimeLeaf. Yeah. What are all these options coming up? I'm not talking about any front end here, guys. I'm talking only about the back end technologies. Front end, you can use anything of your choice. Yeah. Don't give options like Bootstrap, Angular, etc. I'm not talking about front end. We are still talking about the back end. Team, are you all with me? Yeah. Okay. So, what is another alternative that you can use apart from JSP is a view templating engine called TimeLeaf. So TimeLeaf is a HTML based view template engine. So it is easy for us to use because TimeLeaf is a view template engine which is based on HTML. So obviously you'll have a HTML extension for your views and it is a recommended view strategy to be used by Spring. So we will also follow the recommendation in our training. Even when we build our microservices, we will create views which are TimeLeaf based. So if you want to use or create TimeLeaf based views, first and foremost thing is you need to add the appropriate TimeLeaf dependency. So you can see here, group ID is org spring framework.boot and artifact ID is Spring Boot starter TimeLeaf. So this is the dependency that you have to add. And once you add the TimeLeaf dependency, TimeLeaf will expect all the views, the HTML views, to be present under a default path, which is the default folder or default path where TimeLeaf will expect the views to be present. Under SRC main resources, there is one folder called templates folder. So you have to keep all your views under the templates folder. Yeah. This is the default path. Of course, you can even change it if required. By default, it will look at this path, but if you want to change it, there are properties that you can use to change. So for example, spring.timeleaf.prefix, you can change it to a new directory, or by default, the extension of your timeleaf view should be .html. But if you use .htm, okay, then also you can change spring.timeleaf.suffix and you can change. Yeah, nobody is asking us to change it. But in case you want to change, you don't want to use the default settings, you want to change the default path, then these are the properties that are available. Okay. So let's do one thing. In our example, we will start using timeleaf views now. Okay. And of course, if you were creating from scratch, if you were creating everything from scratch, initially when you create a project itself, yeah, under the dependency in your in your start.spring.io, in dependencies, you could have selected timeleaf here itself. See, what is timeleaf? Timeleaf is a template engine. It's a modern server-side Java template engine for both web and standalone environment. It allows HTML to be correctly displayed in your browsers as static prototypes. So this is the technology that we are using. So if you have added timeleaf dependency, obviously that dependency would be there. Yeah, but nothing great. You can just add this dependency also into your app. So I'll go to my app. For now, I've stopped my app. I'll go to the same app. Till now, we were returning data. But what we'll do is now, instead of returning data, we will return a view. Okay. So I'll just go to pom.xml first. In the pom.xml, let me add the dependency for timeleaf. Are you all with me? Can you all see line number 31 to 34? Are you all fine with this dependency, please? Yes, right. And if everything is fine, you can see that appropriate dependency gets downloaded. Okay. Once this is there, let's make some changes. Okay. Once you enable timeleaf, okay, once you enable timeleaf, timeleaf will expect your views to be present under which folder, guys? Timeleaf will expect your views to be present under which folder? Correct. See, under SRC main resources, templates folder, right? So under templates folder, you can keep your views. Yeah. So what I'll do is under templates, I'll just click on new. I will create a new file. Probably I will just call it as name.html. And nothing great. It's a typical HTML, right? So I will just create one HTML page. Just simple HTML. Let me just add one heading telling my name is Savita Sridhar. Okay. Very simple. Are you all fine with this HTML, please? Name.html. So I will do one thing. I will also create another HTML page called city.html. Give a different background color, and I'll say my city is back. So I just give this. Now, so what I've done is I've just added the timeleaf dependency in pom.xml, and whatever HTML templates it returns, I will, whatever it expects, I'm going to keep it here. Now I'm going to make some changes in the control. Yeah, I'm just going to make some changes in the control. Okay. So I will comment this, and I will also comment these methods. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to have one or two methods here. /name. say name, and if I access /city, it will call /city. Yeah. And look at the changes I'm doing here, please. Have a look. Are you able to make out that in my controller, the first change I have done is instead of REST controller annotation, I am using @controller. Are you all with me? Yeah, because in my case, I don't want to return data, but I want to return the view, right? So for that, I'll have to use @controller. Yeah, because we know that @REST controller is a combination of controller plus response body. And because it is controller plus response body, it will return data. But I don't want to return data. I want to return a view. So first change I want to do is instead of REST controller, I will mark it as controller annotation. And here meaning is whenever we receive a request on /name, it will return a string. So here I will return a logical view name. What is the logical view name? I'll just return it as name. So when I return it as name, okay, what is this is the logical view name I'm returning. But what is the default prefix and suffix that TimeLeaf will expect? Yeah, see the logical view name you are returning is this, right? Very similar to the view resolver concept in Spring Framework. Yeah, it will take the logical view name and it will add the prefix, then your logical view name, then it will add the suffix, isn't it? So as per TimeLeaf defaults, what is the prefix under SRC main resources? Okay, templates folder is the prefix. Yeah, this is the prefix. And what is the suffix? .html is the suffix, isn't it? Are you all with me? Yep. So in my case, in this method, I'm returning name. What is name here? Name is not a string. Of course, here it is a string type. But what will name be considered as? Name will be considered as a logical view name. So the logical view name will get mapped to the physical view name. So what is the physical view name? How does it get mapped? What is the prefix? SRC main resources folder, templates. Under templates, it will put your logical view name. Logical view name is name. And what is the suffix? .html. Yeah. So are you able to make out how the logical view name called name got mapped to the physical view name called name.html under the templates folder, guys? Team, are you all with me? Okay. So similarly, you can see that you are returning a logical view name. So here, logical view name called name gets mapped to physical view name, okay, called name.html under the SRC main resources templates folder. Are you all with me? Yeah, that is how it gets mapped. Yeah. Similarly, here, is it the same concept here, guys? Same thing, right? So on top, you are just using controller. That means here, what is it returning? It is returning a logical view name. So this will be treated as a logical view name and it will get mapped to the corresponding city.html under the templates folder, isn't it? Yeah. So this is what gets added here as well. Okay. So this will be city and it will map it to city.html under the templates. Guys, are you all with me? Yeah. So let us see what changes we did. Change one is in pom.xml. We have added the dependency for TimeLeaf. That is step number 1. Step number 2, under the SRC main resources, keep your templates ready. Please note the name of these files should be exactly the logical view name that will be returned in the controller. So see, city.html, name.html like this. And finally in the controller, Earlier, you were just returning data, but now since I want to return a view, I will annotate it with @controller on top. And here, whenever you are returning, you'll just return a logical view name and it gets mapped to the physical view. Team, are you all with me? Yeah, this is a very important concept. We will be learning about these, or we will be using this tomorrow onwards when we work with microservices. Yeah. So let me run this program. Let us see whether it works as expected. So it's up. Let us access it. Now directly under root, you don't have any service, right? So directly under root, I don't have any method. So you can still see that it is returning 404. I'm supporting only two endpoints, /name and /city, right? So I'll say /name. It should show you appropriate name.html. So is it working as expected, guys? Yes. And if I say city, this is what gets shown. Was this the expected output, all of you? Right? Now you can do one more thing here. Tell me if I change it like this, what is your understanding? Okay, let me go back to this program. Yeah. I'm still using @controller, but look at one change I do. Can you look at this change and tell me what will city return now if I make a request on /city? What does it return? Correct. It will return regular data, right? It will return this as a regular data. Why? Because look at this. On top, you have used @controller on the class level. And right in front of this method level, you are using @response body. So controller plus response body annotation is equal to what? Controller plus response body annotation is equal to what? Correct, it's equal to REST controller. That means the method should return data rather than a view, isn't it? Yeah, I'm just checking whether you are able to understand this. Yeah, so this will anyway return only the view. This method will return the view, but only the city method will return the string. Okay, let us try and see. Okay. Now let me access name. Name should still show me the view. That's working as expected. But when I access city, can you see this, guys, all of you? It is just returning data, isn't it? It is not mapping it to a view because I've used response body along with controller combination, which is nothing but REST control. Team, are you all with me till now? Of course, you can change the default path whenever you have time. You can try that as well. Now, I will stop this app. I'll show you one more app now, same TimeLeaf app itself. Guys, still now, in the TimeLeaf example, we work with this name.html and city.html pages, right? Now look at this name.html or city.html. Nothing, no dynamic content I'm showing here, isn't it? I'm showing a regular static content, isn't it this? I'm showing regular static content. Are you all with me? Yeah. But you know what? You can also add additional dynamic content. Yeah, how? Let me show you one example. So here I have already created one program, a time leaf program. If you look at the pom.xml, this same app, look at this. Have I added the dependency for time leaf? Team? Yes, right? Now, I want you to look at some changes. First, let me show you the main application. No change in the application class. Yeah, application class will remain the same. Have a look. Go through it and let me know. Is it the same application class like earlier programs? Yes, no change here. Yeah. Let me show you the controller class. Have a look. Go through the code from line number 10 to line number 17, all of you. If you're getting confused with this, I will. No need of getting confused. Have a look at this, all of you. From line number 10 to line number 17. Just go through it. Are you all comfortable with this? Yeah. Whenever you see the class annotated with @controller, what is your understanding? Will the methods return data or will it return a view? Correct. It will return a view, isn't it? Yeah. Now, when what am I doing in this method? When we receive a request on /hello, this method will be called and it is just returning hello. And what will hello be treated as? Hello will be treated as a logical view name and will get mapped to templates hello.html, isn't it? Yeah, nothing great. Let us also see hello.html here under the templates folder. There it is. Have a look. Are you all comfortable with hello.html? Yes. A regular static simple web page, right? Next, let's go back to the controller again. Now look at the controller method about the next method here. Okay. Analyze this method, please, all of you. Go through the method and then we'll have a discussion. Are you able to make out that this method called get movies will be called when I access /movie endpoint, right? So when we access /movie, this get movies method will be called. And what is this get movies returning? Get movies controller method, look at the return type. It is returning a model and view object. You might have come across and used this model and view object when you have worked with Spring MVC, right? In Spring Framework, when you built a Spring MVC based web application, I'm sure you would have come across the model and view object, isn't it? Yeah. Model and view object contains two parts, isn't it? Yeah. So for example, if I just take this. So this is the model and view object. What you can do is you can populate the model and view object with your model data. This is the model data. Plus you can also map it to a logical view name. Okay, logical view name. So what you can do is you can populate the data and the logical view name. So in our example, look at what I do. When I hit this endpoint called /movie, the control will come to this get movies method. In this get movies method, what am I doing? Initially, I'm creating a model and view object called MV. So initially it is empty. It looks like this. Yeah. Then into this model and view object, calling this method called add object. What am I adding? I'm adding a property called movie name. And what is the value? Value is Top Gun. Yeah. Similarly, I am adding another object whose property name is movie actor. And the value also is a string, which is Tom Cruise. Yeah. So how does it look there? Two things are added here, right? One is movie name. Movie name property is equal to Top Gun, and movie actor property. And what is its value? Tom Cruise. So this is what I've done. Plus, using the method called set view name, I'm also setting the logical view name called movie. So what is the logical view name that is set or move? That means this movie logical view name will have access to this data. So anybody in this movie view, you will have access to this data. So you can extract the data and print it and use it whenever required. That is the whole idea. So I'm creating this model and view object, populating it with this data, populating it with this logical view name, and that is what we are returning. See, get movies, what is it doing? It is returning a model and view object. So whenever I return a model and view object, the control will always go to the view. Yeah, control will always go to the view. So it will go to the view. So if logical name is movie, to which physical view name it gets mapped to, guys? If the logical view name that I'm using is movie, what is the physical view name? What is the physical view name, guys? Correct, movie.html. Under which folder? Ganesh, are you there during our training? You're saying movie.jsp. How? Till now we have been saying no need to use JSP, and finally after the entire training you are giving me one wrong answer. Ganesh, are you there with us during the training, please? Is it JSP? Yeah. Guys, please don't do this. Yeah. I'm trying to make things easier for you. Didn't we do this entire exercise earlier? Now I'm asking you a very simple question. Based on the same thing, if the logical view name that I'm returning is movie, I'm asking you what is the physical view name? What will be the physical view name? Under SRC main resources, movie.html, isn't it? All of you? Yeah. Of course, many of you have given me the right answer, but are you all comfortable? Yes. Please note, all this is necessary for you to proceed with microservices discussion from tomorrow. If you're feeling tired now itself, you will not be able to learn microservices well, because microservices is a niche technology. There will be a lot of complexities. I am trying to make things easier for you. If you are unable to cope up and you are unable to understand things, please take time to reiterate your learnings. Yeah, don't waste your time. Don't come to microservices without knowing the basics. Are you all with me? Yeah. Why am I doing today's module? I could have just said Spring Boot is prerequisite mandatory and I could have continued, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I giving you this introduction? So that you guys feel it comfortable when we start doing microservices from tomorrow onwards, isn't it? Yeah. Are you all comfortable with this, please? Yes. Okay. So here I'm adding all this data into the model and view. Plus I'm also setting the view name, and that is what I'm returning. So in the controller, data is being sent from the controller to the view. See, this method will return a model and view object. Model and view object has the data, plus it also is mapping the logical view name, and it is returning the model and view object. Yeah. Now the control will go to the view, which is movie.html. Let us go to movie.html. You will see something new, but I'm sure you can guess. I want you to go through this movie.html, please. I'll anyway explain. Just go through it. I'm sure you can see something new. Are you able to see some new things here, guys? Yes. One thing is, I am planning to create a dynamic view which contains some dynamic data. So please remember, one way of doing that is, first and foremost in your HTML tag, you have to include the time leaf namespace. So to include the time leaf namespace, you will use a XML attribute called XMLNS, which stands for XML namespace, and you will include the time leaf namespace, whose name is http://www.timeleaf.org. This is the namespace name. But whenever you want to use a namespace is very similar to a package in Java, like how in Java a package will contain all related classes, interfaces, etc. Very similarly, in XML parlance, they have a namespace. Namespace will contain all the elements, attributes together. So if you want to create a dynamic time leaf view, first you have to include the time leaf namespace by using XMLNS, and this is the namespace name. And to access this namespace, you are going to use a prefix called th. So you are giving an alias or a small prefix to your namespace. So I'm giving a prefix here called th. So whenever you want to access this namespace, you can use this prefix called th. Yeah. Then for the body, I'm just giving a background color. Then I'm printing movie name is. I'm using a HTML element called span. And now you can see I'm using some elements provided by timeleaf. So I'm using th. Th is a prefix or an alias short form for timeleaf. Using th, I call the timeleaf element called text, and using this timeleaf element called text, and here is an expression using dollar curly braces. This is an expression. If I want to extract or I want to evaluate an expression, and I want to evaluate the key, and I want to extract the value of the key, I can use this timeleaf expression. So I will say dollar, and within curly braces, I am giving the property name called movie name. So it will evaluate this property name and it will extract the value. So in our case, according to my controller, yeah, what is the value for this property called movie name? Guys, what is the value for this property called movie name? Correct, Top Gun, right? That is what gets displayed here. Yeah. Similarly, I want to print the movie actor. So I am again using th.text. And here again, I'm using the timeleaf expression. And here I am evaluating the key called movie actor. And whatever is the value, that gets extracted. So for movie actor, the value is Tom Cruise. So that gets extracted and it will get printed. So hello.html was a simple static timeleaf view. But movie.html, I am adding dynamic data by using timeleaf elements and timeleaf expressions. Isn't it, guys? Team, are you all with me? So that's it. Now let us run this app and see whether it's working as expected. It's ready. And now let me access. Okay. Now I will access hello. Hello will show you a regular web page. This is hello.html. And now let me try movie. This should show you some dynamic data. Are you able to see this, all of you? Yeah. And I want you to remember, how did I print Top Gun and Tom Cruise? I did not hard code these values. Using the time-leaf element and time-leaf expressions, we have printed these values, isn't it? Yeah. So the view will have access to the data that you have added in the model and view object. So in the view, if at all you want to catch hold of the data and you want to print it or use it, this is how you can use it. Team, are you all with me, please? Yes, right. And based on the same thing, okay, same funda, I'll show you one more program. I'm not going to explain. Just look at it and you have to tell me what am I trying to do here or what is happening in this program. Okay, let me show you one more program here. First form.xml file. I'll show you that I've added the time leaf dependency. Are you all fine with this? From line number 36 to line number 39. Yes, I've added the time leaf dependency. Yeah. Then let me show you the controller, please, all of you. Okay, or first movie. I have a model class called movie. Have a look, all of you. It's a regular model class. Yeah. How many properties are there in this movie class? 2, right? Movie name and movie actor. Then I have a regular no parameterized constructor, then setter getter, all this. Regular Java bean style, right? So movie class with 2 properties is ready. Yeah. Next, let me show you the controller. Very, very easy. Go through it, please, all of you. Go through it. And then I want you to let me know how is this program different from the previous one. Okay, first go through it. Again, check your answer, Ganesh. When you see a class annotated with @controller, what should be your understanding? What is it returning? Correct. It should return a view, right? Next, are you all able to make out on line number 18? I've created a collection called movies. Yeah. I'm creating a list called movies, which is of type. It's an array list and it can store type movie. Yeah. So I've just created a list called movies. Then this is a method. This method gets called when I call /movies. And here, same like previous, I'm creating a model and view object. I'm keeping 5 movies ready. Now, after doing all this? I am adding all these movies to what? What is movies here? Ganesh. Yeah. Yes, it is a list here, right? I am adding all these movies to the list. And finally, into the model and view, what am I adding here? Using add object. The property name will be movies, but what is the value? Am I adding each individual movie again? No, I am adding the list, right? The list here is called movies, right? So I'm just adding the list. Then I'm setting the logical view name called movie, is it? Yeah. Then finally, I'm returning the model and view object. Now we all know this model and view object as its data contains a movies list, which can be accessed by this name called movies. And the view name is movie. Yeah. So from here, the control will go to the logical view name called movie. The logical view name called movie gets mapped to which physical name? Which physical view? Movie.html under the templates folder, right? So let me show you the movies.html. I'm not going to explain anything. Just go through it and tell me what am I trying to do here. Go through it. I'm sure you can understand. What am I doing here in line number 9 to 12? Yes, very similar to other programming language. We are iterating through the movies list and I'm picking up each movie by movie. It's like an enhanced for, isn't it? Which is very useful for iterating through a collection. So I'm iterating through a collection, picking up movie by movie, and for every movie, I'm printing movie name and movie actor, right? So you can see here. So for doing this iteration, there is a tag available from TimeLeaf called each. So using each, which is very similar to our enhanced for, I am iterating. So I'm first access movies. This will give me the entire list. And using each, I pick up each movie by movie. And inside this each, for every movie, I'm printing the movie name and movie actor. And to structurally print it, I'm keeping everything in that table. And for every row, I'm printing the details. Yeah. So that's it. Now let me go back to this app. Let me run it. Let me check the controller endpoint movies. Okay. Okay, it's there. Now let me access movies. Can you see all of you? Is it able to iterate through that list and print each movie name and movie actor separately in a table row? Is it? Yeah. So I showed you one simple example of time leaf. I also showed you how you can pass data from the controller to the view using a model and view object and how you can extract the data and print it. And in this example, I showed you how you can iterate through a collection variety and print the data using time leaf expression and elements. Team, are you all with me? Okay. And our last discussion for today is, guys, did you realize that till now, whenever we wanted to make changes, see, my application was up and running. Now, whenever I wanted to make some change, did you realize that I went ahead and stopped the app first? Then I made changes. Then I restarted my app. Did you realize? Yes, right? But if you are working in a huge development environment, this way of working can become a little tedious, isn't it? Whenever you want to make some small changes, either to the UI or whatever, again you have to keep stopping and restarting and all that, right? So instead, what you can do is you can add some development tools which will automatically, whenever you, without even restarting your app, whenever you make changes, auto redeploy of your app will happen. Yeah. And if you have added the auto live reload extension to your browsers, it will automatically even refresh the browser whenever there is a change. So how do you enable this? This can be enabled by using DevTools. Yeah. So I'm introducing you to the last additional module you can use in Spring Boot called DevTools. Spring Boot DevTools includes additional set of tools that can make the entire application development experience a little more pleasant. Stopping and starting your app every time you make changes to your app will be an annoying experience. What Spring Boot DevTools does is, Spring Boot DevTools, please note it's not a starter module. It's an additional development module called Spring Boot DevTools. This is where it comes to our rescue. So it can be included in your project to provide you additional development time features. So what you'll do is you can add it in your pom.xml file like this. Please note the artifact ID, Spring Boot DevTools, no starter. It's not a starter module. It's a regular development tool. So Spring Boot DevTools. And now for the last time, you can save and rebuild and restart your app. From now onwards, no need to stop and restart your app whenever the changes are there. Automatically, the changes will be reflected. Okay? So we will do that. Of course, you can add it even directly from here. There is a dependency available for DevTools. Yeah? Spring Boot DevTools. Yeah? So you can see the description provides fast application restarts, live reload and configuration, etc. So you can add that dependency. So what I'll do is I'll just go to this, copy this dependency. We'll go to my app. For the last time I'm stopping this app. And after stopping this app, I will just go to my, I can go to my previous app instead of troubling this. I'll go to my first demo project, right? This one. You can just go to pom.xml, and in pom.xml, I can. Are you all with me? You see that I've added the dependency for DevTools, please. Yeah. Spring Boot DevTools. That's what I've added. Yeah? Now, once I've added, nothing great. Once everything's there, you can now run your app. Okay? So let me run your app. We'll see how it makes difference. Okay. So now let me access that. Okay, now it's like this. We'll do one thing. I'm not stopping the app. I'll come to this app. Keep watching. For easy understanding, let me just clear this. Okay, clear the console. Let me go to the controller. Okay, I'm going to the controller. Keep watching the output. Okay, behind. So let me go to the controller. Here, instead of returning, okay, or name, okay, I'll go to the view then. It's a view, right? So I'll just go to this view. Let me change the name. Yeah. Let me change the name here. Instead of Savita, let me change it as Roj. So the moment I make the changes to my app, yeah, auto redeploy of the app will happen. So if there are any changes in the controller, etc., auto redeploy of the app will happen. Now, not a problem because it's just the HTML. That changes also will take care. But though I have changed, the browser has not changed, right? But only when I come back and refresh, the changes will be reflected. Yeah. But you can see here, actually there is, when you enable DevTools, there's something called live reload that gets enabled. Yeah, there is a live reload server that will start, but that will work only if you have a live reload extension that you have added to your browser. Yeah, so you can search for live reload extension for your Chrome browser, but again at Wipro it is blocked. So what I've done is I have enabled it uh, for Edge. So can you all see one small icon here, guys? Yeah, one small circle with one arrow pointing to each other like this. This is the live reload icon. So once you add it, this will be enabled. And here you can see it is live reload wants to access this site. It's already having access to this site. Yeah. If you click once, it will get, you can see that the details will be there. Live reload is active and it has access to this. Yeah. If you wanted to watch a particular path or you want to add a rule, you can add it here. Yeah. Now what I'll do is I will do one thing. Anyway, it has access to it. Let me access name. Yeah. So you can see that it is showing Roger. I'll do one thing. I'll come back to this. Please note here it is enabled. Yeah. The live reload is enabled, but when I come back and make changes, keep watching. See, I just make the change and make a save. I am not refreshing the browser. See, automatically behind this, did you see that the browser automatically refreshed and it showed me the changes? Did you see that? I'll do it again. See, I'll change it to Alex. I am only saving. I'm not pressing anything. Automatically auto live reload happens and you can see the changes available. Isn't it? Yeah. This is what the live reload or the dev tools can add. So once you add DevTools, it will beautifully work. On the browser, if you want auto reload also to happen, you have to add this live reload extension. Yeah. In the if you are using a personal laptop, you can add this. Okay, live reload for Chrome. So live reload, but it is blocked by admin for official machines. Yeah. But the same thing I was able to add it to my Edge. So in case you have Edge browser, you can try to add it there. You can say live reload also is blocked. Team, are you all with me, please? So that's it. With that, we come to the end of today's session. Just to summarize whatever we have done till now. We looked at what is Spring Boot. We looked at Spring Boot features. We also looked at Spring Boot and starter modules. We also saw how you can create and execute Spring Boot application. And we also discussed additional services. Under additional services, we talked about actuator. We talked about time leaf. And just now we talked about dev tools. Are you all with me, please? So that's it for today. I'll meet you all tomorrow with the next session of our microservices training.